Get ready to rumble. It's unlike anything you've seen before. The Outsiders, now on Broadway. Of course, it's based on the iconic novel we all know and love by S.E. Hinton. Let's send it back out to Paul Wontorek.
This has been 40 years in the making for me, a dream meeting. There's a lot of weight that comes with your name. You've sort of impacted a lot of people's lives.
I have, but I don't think about that. I don't wake up every morning and think, oh man, I'm S.E. Hinton. I wake up and think, I need to feed the cat.
I think all authors have a special relationship with their readers, but you, specifically writing for a younger reader, you really are like sort of entering people's lives in such an important part of their life, aren't you?
Well, I was a teenager when I wrote it.
Yeah.
So I wrote it at the right time, because I wrote what I felt. And even 5 years later, I couldn't have written it, because I can remember what it was like to be 16, but I can't be 16.
Mm-hmm.
So those over-the-top emotions and feelings and just, the sense of injustice in the world, or you were just what I was feeling. And it's what the readers feel when they're that young and they read it.
You actually wrote an essay for the New York Times back then, shortly after the publication, and you
Yes.
said, like, these authors are behind the times. Teenagers want to hear a voice like this.
Well, there was nothing being written for teenagers that dealt realistically. It was all Mary Jane Goes to the Prom with the Quiet Boy Next Door instead of the football hero, which he had a good time anyway. Or Tommy hits a home run, and wasn't that fun? That was not what I was seeing in high school. Because, going to the prom, the big suspense was who got the liquor and how they got it in, and who got killed in the parking lot. I mean, this is what I was seeing in high school.
For many people, the film cast is obviously extremely iconic. So many of those boys went on to become Hollywood icons.
Right.
But I heard you say that you don't think of those faces and these characters, and actually these characters came out of real people that you went to school with. You were friends, they were kind of inspired by real...
Yeah, they were, but nobody was exactly based on anybody.
Right.
They're fictional characters.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, can I come to town? You can introduce me to Pony Boy. No. Pony Boy's the closest thing to me that I've ever written into a book. But they are all some part of me because I'm the filter they went through. Mm-hmm. So I was like Pony Boy, but some part of me is like Dallas, or I couldn't have written him.
And I know the film of The Outsiders, which many people know frame by frame, and I know Francis Ford Coppola released a director's version later because fans of your book
wrote him,
begged him to, like, you forgot.
Like, where's this scene? Where's this scene? And I was shocked when I first saw the film because we shot the whole book. He told me he was asked to speak at his granddaughter's class, and he said, and I knew they were going to say, well, what happened to this scene? What happened to this? And he went back and kind of patched together a lot of the scenes, and then he did. Only director I've heard of that went and re-edited the film because fans of the book asked him to.
Right now, we are dealing with a big, beautiful Broadway musical.
Oh, isn't it great?
And so now I think it's really cool that now there's this new cast of maybe future stars. I mean, they're all fantastic. So is there anything that you think they specifically got really right in the musical?
Well, they got the feelings right. At the core, it's the brother story. It's about family.
Yeah.
And they got that right. And all the Curtis brothers are very, very good actors, and they play the part so well. I love the choreography because they have that energy. And of course, the Rumble is so exciting. I mean, it is. When I saw it in La Jolla, I saw one showing where it was mostly kids in the audience. They were screaming. I saw it with a state audience the other night, and they were all adults, and they were very excited. They weren't screaming, but they were very excited, and so that's cool.
Does it still excite you when you get to see young people react to your work?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've gone to talk to a lot of schools, and they're still, even in the toughest schools, have a streak of idealistic that's you know, it's just part of being a teenager. And I mean, a lot of things you think they were different back then are not really all that different nowadays. And I swear, today, if you had 10 kids in school, they'd divide up into the in group and the out group. The names, the labels change. Well, we have that in our school. We call them skaters and, you know, jocks and this and that. The names change, but the idea of the groups never changes.
I heard that the initial sort of spark was when you were 15 and you saw a greaser friend of yours actually get jumped, similar to what happens to Ponyboy at the beginning of The Outsiders.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine, I grew up in a greaser neighborhood, and I got put into college track classes. I guess you'd call them advanced placement nowadays. But, so I had friends on both sides where I lived. A friend of mine got beaten up on his way home from school, and I came home and began what I thought was going to be a short story about a kid who was beaten up on his way home from the movies. And it turned out to be the beginning of The Outsiders.
When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home.
The first line references Paul Newman, which I love. Did Paul Newman ever react to that?
Not as far as I know.
Interesting.
But
it's like a very famous person. It's in the show as well.
The thing is, I'd read somewhere that you could tell on the first page of a book what its themes were when I stepped out of the darkness into the light, which is basically what Pony does. Steps into the light at the end, and then when he says, I was thinking about Paul Newman and a ride home, and it shows you right there that character has 1 foot in reality, because he needs a ride home. But he's still thinking about Paul Newman, so he's got a foot in the imaginary world too, all the time.
And of course, Robert Frost, the poem.
Ponyboy quotes Robert Frost. He credits Robert Frost. And to this day, people think I wrote that poem, which is not the worst thing that could happen to a writer, but
what you did was stay gold. This quote, stay gold. Did you have any memory of where that came from for you as it's such a beautiful device?
I was goofing off in my creative writing class, as usual. And I was thumbing through a magazine, and I came across that poem. And I thought, oh, this is what I'm trying to say in my book. So Ponyboy makes a point of saying he didn't really understand what the writer meant. And then at the end, it's Johnny that told him what the writer means. You know, I guess just how it came to me.
Do people still say to you, stay gold, Susie? Is this a constant in your life? I find myself saying it a lot in the last few months.
Well, not my friends or anything. I mean, it's like, I'm staying gold while going gray.
I know you live in Tulsa.
Yes.
Your life is in Tulsa. You're in New York for the opening of The Outsiders. Your husband actually was with you at your very first book signing of The Outsiders, wasn't
Yes, he was.
I saw a photo of it online.
Yeah, we met freshman year of college, and it was the second semester when, and we'd been going together for months when I had my book signing, and of course he'd known about it all the time, so he went with me for my book signing, and we got a picture of it.
One thing that I really was so moved by in the show is obviously in The Outsiders we're watching Ponyboy become a writer, and basically it ends with him writing this book. And there's this beautiful moment at the end of the show where Brody, playing Ponyboy, holds up this book and hands it to a new reader. And it's such a beautiful gesture, so simple, but so it moved me so tremendously.
That was new to me. I asked Brody, I said, how was there somebody, did they plant somebody in there? And he said, no. But he said, I just try to take a moment and get a vibe and find somebody to give it to.
It's gonna feel good though, even when you're back home in Tulsa, to know that every night Ponyboy's telling his story.
Oh yeah, I'm glad I've gotten to see it.